All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juan Arias, and I am a technical analyst here at Citrix, based out of the headquarters in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm here to present to you guys about the Citrix experience and the different solutions that Citrix can provide. Now, the session, the webinar will be recorded and sent out to everyone attending. So in case you miss anything or want to review it later, it'll be sent out to you guys, I think, tomorrow. And also the winner of the $50 Amazon gift card will be contacted directly right after the webinar. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so we'll start off by talking about Citrix today and how we're helping customers in regards to BCP and the different verticals we're a part of. Then we'll move on to how Citrix is reimagining the future of work and going over the Citrix Workspace. Then we'll move on to the different deployment options and what those architectures would look like on-premise versus the cloud. Then we'll move to the Citrix Cloud Admin Console demo and take a look at the different capabilities there. And then we'll be talking about Citrix's networking offering in the Application Delivery Controller, previously known as NetScaler. And then we'll speak to Citrix's ICA protocol that our sessions are all delivered through. And then we'll speak to our enterprise file sharing solution known as Content Collaboration. And then we'll finish it off with some Q&A. Now, there is going to be a survey coming up on your screen momentarily about your current understanding of Citrix and our different products. So some of you might not know anything about Citrix really, but if you do, you're probably familiar with our staple technologies like the virtualization of apps and desktop, which is previously known as Zen App, Zen Desktop. Then we have our networking appliance in the Citrix ADC, which was previously known as the NetScaler. Now, we've been through so many different name changes, so it might get a little confusing. So I apologize for that. But we also have our enterprise file sharing solution in Content Collaboration, which is previously known as Share File. And then we have the final option that runs the ICA protocol that runs alongside our HDX technologies. So I'll give you guys a sec to just cast your votes out. All right. Okay, so Citrix today. Citrix is currently being used in 98% of the Fortune 500 companies spanning all across the world. We have extremely strong presences in the finance and healthcare verticals alongside manufacturing, education, and the federal government as well. And we're actually also currently in space. So NASA is using Citrix to communicate with the space station in orbit right now, which is a super cool bragging point I love bringing up. And also in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic we're facing right now, we've taken huge strides in helping customers enable their remote work environments and assisting them in those BCP initiatives through products such as Remote PC, Citrix Managed Desktops, and expanding their cloud presence as well. So for those customers who already had an environment, yet they needed to ramp it up in order to handle that massive increase in load since the whole world shut down and started working from home. And actually, my colleague was actually helping with an account in Ohio with their State Department and was able to stand up, I think, more than 5,000 users it was that by spinning up a remote PC environment for them in under 48 hours, which is pretty incredible. All right, so this slide is meant to show a few of the different flavors of the virtualization of apps and desktops that we can offer. So say a call center employee really only uses one, maybe two applications throughout their workday. That's essential for them to go about their work. And it's not too heavy of an application either, so more of a light workload. Now, they would probably be recommended to go with published applications. Now, this is where multiple users are sharing the same resources all in one server, which further reduces that cost of infrastructure. Or say the second case, it's an accountant that has to use several applications throughout their workday and prefers to access them all from a desktop that looks and feels like it's running locally on their computer. And since they're probably running several applications, although they're not too intensive each on their own, I'd still consider it probably a medium workload. And we would then deliver them hosted shared desktops. And what that is it's a virtual desktop that shares resources from server with other users. So they'd still get all of those applications, but it'd be accessed through a virtual desktop. But it's cheaper because they'd be sharing those resources with others as well. And then say you have a more specific use case on the third example, say with your graphic design team or people who run heavy AutoCAD apps or GPU intensive applications, or say you have a C-level executive who wants to have all the customizations they want and can have, and they don't want to be held back by any sort of load restrictions in that sense, and they want to be able to install their own applications too. So then we would recommend a dedicated VDI or persistent VDI desktop for those heavier workloads. Now, these are dedicated resources to those users, so they'd be the only ones using up that RAM and CPU on the servers. Now, there's going to be another survey coming up in a sec on your current IT initiatives that you're prioritizing today. So I believe the options. So are you focused more on a remote work productivity? So focusing on those BCP initiatives and making sure your employees can work wherever, whenever they want from whatever device? Or are you focused more on a migration to Windows 10, moving away from the more archaic operating systems that might be getting deprecated with certain solutions? Or are you focused on more of a push to the cloud, or maybe the opposite, a little bit of both in a hybrid scenario, multi-cloud hybrid deployment? And finally, are you more focused on a solution where you can securely sync and share your files seamlessly? So pick whichever one is more important to you, and we'll try and tackle it in the next couple slides. All right, we'll move forward. So let's start off this conversation by discussing the circumstances that many IT organizations are facing today. The first being that SaaS and web apps are taking the main stage. Many IT organizations are moving to Office 365, and that's just one of many of the SaaS apps in their environment. And with these SaaS apps comes challenges in streamlining identity and monitoring that data, the data security of the content in those SaaS apps. I always say SaaS apps are definitely love-hate. So an IT admin is going to love them because they're fast and easy to deploy and accessible from anywhere. And then for an IT security admin, it's terrifying because they're fast and easy to deploy and accessible from anywhere. Now, this exact topic is why many of us in parallel start to assess our mobile device management strategy. So employees now have access to all this content from any device so that they continue to be productive from anywhere. And for that reason, we need to make sure we have some IT control over all that data on those devices. Of course, there are business benefits of introducing and embracing those BYO programs as well. Now, the next point is then when you think of all the data that all your users are accessing daily and the amount of sensitive information those files might contain, we then shift the focus to securely sharing and collaborating on those files. So files that could be stored in OneDrive, local network shares, Dropbox, Google Drive, Box, and then obviously many more. We need a way to aggregate and secure all this content. And then if we go one click down into some of the more specifics, like cloud computing and the ability to host not just the applications, but the desktops in the cloud is definitely getting more traction, especially as the big cloud vendors battle it out to make a cloud-hosted desktop the go-to solution for empowering that remote workforce. And the concept is pretty simple. So you give them a desktop in the cloud as a secured entry point to get their work done. And you control the desktop and everything from that point into your network. And then building on that brings hybrid cloud architecture. Now, these architectures don't spin up overnight. You need to be able to leverage the power of cloud computing side by side with your existing business resources. And then if we take a step back from all these initiatives, we can identify one key commonality. We are on a mission to make our users more productive by making our IT solutions more integrated. And we are all working towards delivering a centralized digital workspace. And good news, Citrix is here to help in that regards. So when we talk about Citrix virtual apps and desktops, we like to focus on our core product investment principles, and they continue to be experience, security, and choice. So experience in delivering the best possible user experience on any device. User experience is a core principle of not only Citrix virtual apps and desktops, but all of our Citrix Workspace solutions. And then moving on to security. So Citrix virtual apps and desktops are inherently secure by design, but here at Citrix, we continue to invest product security features and capabilities that strengthen the overall security of the solution. And then choice. So when some people think of Citrix, the word any comes into mind. Anywhere, anytime, any place, any device. Now that's because IT should also have choice over their infrastructure and cloud providers, but they should also have choices in management and monitoring tools that align to their admin needs. So we also want to provide the end user flexibility in the devices that they use to access their work, which ultimately can be any device that has internet connectivity. All right, so this is a great metaphor of a printer. I like to mention that helps explain what Citrix is really all about. So enterprise software is like a photocopier, right? So everyone's office has one. And there's probably one person in every office that knows how to use all of those little red buttons. They have been through the training and maybe even were involved in the purchase decision. They know how to make 20 double-sided color copies that are collated and stapled and all that jazz. But the rest of us walk up to the printer, and what do? We hit the green button. The challenge with enterprise software today is that it's all those red buttons. Each app was built with the power user in mind, but most users aren't the power users. They're the 99% where they just want to take a simple action, the big green button. Now, Citrix is in the business of delivering those green button experiences. Now, the Workspace is a prime example of this. So transitioning to Citrix Workspace, which is our way of delivering apps, desktops, and files to the end users and having them access it all through a single pane of glass. With the Workspace, we're able to deliver SaaS apps, web apps, legacy apps, Linux apps, virtual desktops. So just further touching on that topic of flexibility and choice. And they can do it all from their Workspace, which, if you're not familiar, can either be a locally installed application called Workspace on your device, or just a URL that your users are going to type into their browser. So I know the picture is a little small, but if you see on the left-hand side of the Workspace page there, under desktops, you see files. So this is where we integrate our content collaboration or share file, as it was previously known, into the user's Workspace. So they won't have to leave their Workspace to open or share any documents. From that same place is also where we can integrate with other third-party file sharing solutions like Dropbox, Google Drive, and Box. And with all this, IT admins are able to manage this all from a single pane of glass as well with the Cloud Console, which I'll be giving a demo of later on throughout the presentation. All right, so the Citrix Workspace was designed with employee experience in mind. That's top priority. So this means faster access and onboarding as well, greater productivity through integrated workflows, advanced collaboration, so making engaging with your colleagues more easy and more fun, unlimited choice, allowing your employees to work from their favorite devices, regardless of the location that they might be at, and then enterprise-grade security that doesn't slow you down at the end of the day. So say, for example, you're working in your office on your laptop and you're working on a Word document of a RFP, and you finish it up and you share it to a group that works underneath you using content collaboration, and you're waiting for them to add some critical info to it before you can send it to that customer. But now you have to leave the office and suddenly take the train and go home. So now while you're on the train, all you have to do is open up your Workspace app on your phone, launch the Microsoft phone or tablet, launch the Microsoft Word application you were just using, and now your session will pick up right where that document left off. And it'll show the updates that your colleagues made to it in real time, so you can review it before sending it. And it can all be done from that mobile device. We focused on providing the same user experience across all of our devices too, so that we aren't adding any additional headaches, just so you can work on the go. So we're further focusing on that idea of that big green button, making sure the user's experience is seamless. All right, so moving to deployment options and what those architectures would look like in a traditional deployment versus more of a hybrid cloud approach. So this is what that traditional deployment for virtual apps and desktops would look like. And now it can be split up into two different pieces. So this top piece, which would be more of the back-end infrastructure, we like to call it the guts of the operation that makes the service run. And then there's the organization infrastructure. Now, these are things that are proprietary, like your Active Directory and applications and desktops that your users are going to be accessing. Now, traditionally, this would all be managed by the customer or a partner of their choice. But back in 2015, we launched Citrix Cloud. And now, as you can see with the new model, we would be running a split architecture. And this cloud that you see up on top is what Citrix is going to take care of for you, which is the guts of the operation. Now, keep in mind, everything in the cloud is made highly available. It's being run in different resource locations. Everything is up to date at all times, including latest and greatest security features and standards and latest features. So you'll never be stuck in a position where you're going through, say, an upgrade path and the technology is going end of service or being deprecated. Now, the second part of the slide on the bottom here, this is still being managed by your organization or through a partner. Now, this can live anywhere, a public cloud, a private cloud, in your data center, or a combination of all three. Now, the customer still owns this information. They still have to keep this secure, and they're still running this deployment at the end of the day. However, they're not being bogged down or tied down by that back-end infrastructure, making sure that it's always running according to Citrix best practices and making sure it's updated and patched, because that's going to be taken care of by us. We spin up that technology and give them access to it, and then they make it unique to their organizations. And then the cloud connector here, the little middleman here in the is basically an egress connection to the cloud. So that allows your on-prem or partner managed infrastructure talk to the cloud in just an outbound connection. All right, so now it's time for the admin experience demo. So I will hop into my browser, and it's already there, but all you have to type in is citrix.cloud.com, and it'll prompt you to sign in. So you'll enter your credentials here. I know a lot of admins are starting to use multi-factor authentication for themselves as well, so not just the end user. So I'll log in here, and then it'll prompt me to select what cloud plane I want to access. And then after logon, you're prompted with the Citrix Cloud Admin homepage. Now, this is really a platform to deliver all of our technologies. We have a list of some of the Citrix technologies here that are available to this cloud plane. And we have some of our staple technologies like the virtualization of apps and desktops and Citrix content collaboration, previously known as ShareFile. And then we have some of the newer technologies like Citrix Analytics, which is a data collection and data profiling product that covers security, performance, and productivity. And it's used to enable admins to support their Citrix product deployments through proactive responses to threats. And it uses machine learning algorithms to do so. Then we also have our mobile device management solution in endpoint management, which can control devices as a whole or on a per app basis. Then we also have our workspace environment management here, which can be used for resource optimization of, CPU, RAM, input, output, and significantly improved logon times as well, which is pretty neat. And we have our ADM console up here, which is used for network analytics. But yeah, so so what we're doing is just managing the backend for you and providing you access to all these resources from a single pane of glass. Also, say you want to try out a service that you're not very familiar with, all you have to do is request a trial, and then within a few days, that service is going to be spun up for you, and you'll be good to go to try it out. So the first thing I will be showing is library offerings here. Now, this is the first thing I like to brag about. It's similar to a delivery group. If you're familiar with Citrix in the past, it's a term that we use to name the way that we assign applications to specific users or groups. Now, if we did manage subscribers of these applications, so say this is a group of applications here that you're trying to deliver to your users, you manage the subscribers and say you want Bob to get this delivery group now and have access to all of these applications, you would simply select your domain, type the user, click on their name, and that user will now have access to that delivery group. And also, a lot of companies nowadays are using SaaS apps, obviously, very heavily in their day-to-day operations, and we can easily add these SaaS apps to the Citrix Workspace and deliver those applications to users with full single sign-on capabilities in a matter of minutes. This is a really popular feature with several companies right now, or several of my customers, sorry, because whenever a new application gets introduced or a person higher up requests the use of an application and needs it delivered to them as soon as possible, that process takes a few minutes, and that SaaS app is now going to be a part of their workspace. So all you do is click the application out of the 300 or 299 that we offer. You select the application. You can name the application. You can actually change the icon of that app as well. You just specify the URL and then your domain, and click next. And then you can either use enhanced security or not. Now, what this is, if you want to use all of them, this would display a watermark on that application. So restricting screenshots by putting your name and IP address all throughout the screen. You can restrict downloads, restrict navigation from that application, restrict printing from that application, or copy and paste as well. Now you can either enable this or disable this. And then the last thing is single sign-on. So if you don't want to use single sign-on, which I'm going to select for this demo purpose, but from here you just enter all your SAML information, and then you will be good to go. So for this, I'll do don't use single sign-on, but that's how you would configure that. Save, and it's delivered already. So that took me less than a minute, considering I didn't really have to enter any information, but it's very easy to do. Now I'll hop back into the home page, and I will be showing resource locations. So resource locations here are any location where you have any sort of apps or data or infrastructure tied into your cloud plane. I have two tied in here, but you can have Azure locations, AWS locations, home labs, on-prem data centers as well. And the color of these boxes will indicate the health of each resource location. So the boxes will either be a light blue for healthy, yellow for a warning, or red for an outage. Now, this one's yellow because we recommend having at least 3 cloud connectors in order to have high availability in case one were to go down. And then also on top of that, in case one is updating. So if one's updating, we want to be able to have at least 2 more for backup. So I'll hop back into the home page, finish off this taskbar. So the domains here in the middle. So this is where you would manage your domains, add new ones, and this is your notifications pop-up. So this is where it tells you a type of notification, the time of the notification, where that notification came from, and the specifics of that notification. And then here you would open up a ticket. So this open ticket is cool because as a centralized management system, which is the Cloud Console, you can send tickets for all of your services that you have from one location. So it's super helpful not having to go into the correct service to request a specific ticket and worry that you're in the right place or not. You can just do it all from here. Now I'll be hopping into identity and access management here. So here's where we can talk about the different authentication methods that we can leverage, and also where we can specify administrator permissions on this tab. So for authentication, we can tie in Azure Active Directory to pass off credentials to AD, and we can tie in with Okta. And we're constantly growing in this world and releasing new methods every couple months. So it's cool to see the new capabilities coming out of testing and going GA. So that's pretty neat. And then if we hop into this administrators tab, this is where we delegate that access on your admin team. So if, say for example, you have an admin that really only focuses on one part of the solution, you can delegate that access for them to only have, say if they're only virtualizing apps and desktops, you give them this specific permission instead of giving them permission to the whole environment, the whole entire environment. So this is where you would delegate that admin access. All right, then we'll hop into workspace configuration here. So obviously where you would configure your workspace. Now here at the top is the workspace URL that your end users are going to be typing into their browser and accessing, and you can edit this so that it says your company name. So instead of Team Awesome, it'll say your company name .cloud.com, which is pretty cool. And here is also where we talk about access in your gateway and configure the connectivity of that gateway. So if we were to do here and select configure connectivity of your gateway, you can select whether you want to use it as a service, so running in the cloud, or if you want to use the traditional gateway. So you can have an on-prem gateway or hosted in the cloud, in a public cloud for an ADC. Or you can do an internal only gateway, so only internal users can be accessing that gateway. All right, and then this customize tab is where you can customize the appearance of your workspace. So this is what your users are gonna end up seeing. So you can add your logo and branding in your workspace, which is really cool. So your users will look and feel like it's your company's own software that they're accessing. And you can have, you can customize the color schematics as well so that it's more tailor-made towards your company, which is pretty cool. And then hopping into the sites tab. So if you're using an on-prem deployment of our virtual apps and desktop architecture, you can actually add that entire site in here to the Citrix Cloud. That way you can manage and control and deliver all those resources from here to your users. All right, so the first service I'm going to be hopping into is the virtual apps and desktops. So where you would manage your environment. Now, if you're familiar with Citrix and have had any familiarity with our products before, or managing environments with Citrix, you're familiar with Studio. And you're going to notice right away that it has the same look and feel as if it was running on-prem. It looks the same and functions exactly the same, except now it's going to be hosted in the cloud and accessed from the cloud. Oh, let me open that back up. But yeah, so it's going to look and feel exactly the same. And we're just enabling you and giving you that ability to use it in a much more updated and faster manner with the same traditional tools you might be used to. So going over it at a glance, it's a lot to digest at first, but machine catalogs here. So this is how what resources your users are actually accessing. So you specify the machines that they want to access from here. And delivery groups, so this is what I was mentioning prior, which is how you assign specific users and users to specific applications. So if you want users to just be accessing applications and a specific subset of applications, then you would create a delivery group just specific to those users. And you can create as many delivery groups as you want. So if you just want people to get a desktop, then you would just deliver them desktops instead of applications, and you would manage that all from here. And you can add machines as well and app groups as well. I won't go too in depth, and this is where you manage your applications as well, what applications you want delivered. And I only have one here, but this is where you would do so. This is where you would handle Citrix specific policies. So this policies tab, so Citrix specific ones that aren't done through GPMC would be taken care of from here. And it's a very easy to use and intuitive user interface. And then you have your hosting connections here as well, and a bunch of different cool things from this console. So this is where you manage that whole environment, your whole studio console. So now the next thing I'll be jumping into quickly is access control. So we'll hop in access control, and this is where you can manage the type of content, that you want your users to be allowed to access. So this will let your admins have control over any of the websites that are being accessed within a session. So if your user clicks on a hyperlink, and you can either allow regular access to that hyperlink if you deem the website safe, or you can deny the website if you think it would be risky and maybe lead to malware being downloaded. So you can blacklist and whitelist websites and entire categories of websites as well. Also, a key feature is you can redirect certain risky websites that are necessary to access, or you want your users to be able to access, into a secure browser. Now, what's a secure browser? So it's our way that we can isolate internet traffic through a published browser and have that browser run in Citrix Cloud instead of in your data center or your local network. Now, this browser is disposable, so after you're done with it, we simply get rid of it from the cloud, and you get a new one every time. Now, this uses lateral network segmentation, and it actually creates an air gap between that harmful activity or malware and your user's device or the network. Now, departments like public relations or marketing and social media teams depend on internet access to perform those daily tasks. And with access control, your admin team can have control over which sites are deemed high risk, allowing your users to still surf the web securely without the worry of phishing or malware attacks, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's the last thing that I have to show on the demo, but there's obviously a lot more, but due to time, that's going to be the last thing, and I'll hop back into the presentation. All right. So moving forward, we have the different Citrix networking solutions. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think Citrix and networking is our ADC. So when we talk about networking and how it relates to Citrix, we immediately jump to ADC or NetScaler, if you're familiar, because it's really a Swiss Army knife of a product, and it can do a number of things, but the main ones being it's a high-powered networking appliance that load balances traffic, it authenticates our external users, and provides an array of security features. And it also provides heavy SSL offloading to help reduce that network traffic and the load on your internal resources. And then with ADM, it can provide network analytics as well. And this slide gives an overview of more of the flavors and features that the ADC can offer, whether that be content switching, various forms of optimization through SSL offloading or different types of TCP optimizations, compression, and caching. And then with security, it's also a beast of a product with the built-in web app firewall, keeping your apps and APIs secure by protecting against both known and unknown app attacks, and then providing insights for faster solutions as well. And also leveraging AAA authentication, and then in the management side. So with ADM, it provides that insight into network analytics and our HDX connection, which I'll be speaking to on the next slide. And then finally, the ADC appliance can vary in form factor as well. So it can be a physical appliance, which there's two options, refers to. One is our SDX, which is our multi-tenancy solution. And then also we have our MPX, which is what we would recommend if you want pure horsepower and scalability. Now we have our virtual appliance in our VPX that can be hosted on-prem or in the cloud. We have our container-based ADC in the CPX if you plan on leveraging Kubernetes in the future. We have the ADC that's hosted in the cloud, which is known as our gateway as a service. And then finally, our BLX, which is our bare metal appliance that provides more simplicity with no virtual machine overhead. All right, so hopping into the famous HDX and ICA protocol. So nowadays, users have come to expect real-time responses from their applications. They want it to feel just as fast as if it was running locally, and they want a fast and reliable connection regardless of whether they are, whether they're on a corporate network or their WAN, wide area network, which are often low bandwidth or high in latency. But with our HDX technologies, your users are getting the best possible user experience across all virtual apps and desktops. I like to use the comparison also of a tunnel versus a straw. So a VPN connection, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, is like a tunnel, allowing full entry inside a network, sending massive amounts of data, whereas our ICA connection can be compared to a straw. So only sending over mouse clicks and screen grabs of moving images that have changed. And also to clear things up, it's our HDX technologies that are built on top of the ICA remoting protocol. So our ICA protocol allows that transmission, where HDX is more of the secret sauce of when to use which process to transmit the graphics. And then Citrix's patented ICA remoting protocol would say, I would definitely say is our bread and butter, because it's been known around the tech industry as the leading remoting protocol for the past 2+ decades, just because of how lightweight it is and how it can thrive on those low bandwidth scenarios. So HDX Insight that's built, so the HDX Insight that's built on top of it can show the specific parts of the ICA connection that might be having issues in order to help further optimize that connection as well. And HDX is built on top of 3 technical principles, and those are designed to optimize the IT and the user experience. So decrease bandwidth consumption as well, and then increase user density on a server. The first being intelligent redirection. This examines screen activity, app commands, endpoint devices, and network and server capabilities, and it determines how and where to render an app or desktop activity. And rendering can occur on either the endpoint device or the server. Now, client redirection uses the processing power on the endpoint. So that is if there's any to use. And it uses up that free space to free up the server to handle other processes or to handle more users. And then device redirection intercepts the different peripherals at a local level to allow the users to interact with these devices. Then there's adaptive compression. So adaptive compression assists in delivering that rich multimedia experience over those thin network connections. HDX chooses the most optimal compression codec and the best proportion of CPU and GPU, depending on the type of content being displayed, whether it's text, video, or just voice. Also, it takes a look at the type of input, the type of device accessing it, and the network conditions as well. And this can all be intelligently adapted per user or on a per session basis. Then there's data deduplication. So deduplication of network traffic ultimately reduces the extra data being sent between the client and the server. It does this by taking advantage of repeated patterns in commonly accessed data. So by caching that data, these patterns, it lets only the changes be transmitted across the network, further eliminating that duplicate traffic. All right, so another large differentiator, I would say, for us from the competition is our display optimization of our ICA protocol. And a key piece of that is our HDX adaptive transport, which ensures that all functions within the user's sessions are performing well, even as the network characteristics are changing. And this is done through our Enlightened Data Transport, EDT protocol, which makes intelligent and reliable use of UDP for optimum performance. Now, adaptive transport allows for the sessions to seamlessly switch between UDP and TCP as needed without any extra configuration required. And the end result is a highly responsive session for a wide range of client endpoints. And yeah, the ICA protocol uses the 2 ports 1494 and 2598 if you're using session reliability. Now, session reliability is a way of keeping a session artificially active, even if the network connection itself drops or is interrupted. So the user experience is that the session remains visible, but frozen instead of immediately dropping if the network connection is lost at any point. So they just see a frozen screen until they reconnect to the network instead of losing everything instantly. So that's a pretty cool feature as well. All right, so moving on to content collaboration. So our enterprise file sharing solution, which previously known as ShareFile. I keep mentioning that just in case anyone gets confused, because ShareFile is a pretty popular name that has been around for a while. All right, so content collaboration and enabling that digital workspace. So starting with increasing productivity and doing that, allowing users access to their files, whether they be online or even offline. Also allowing them to collaborate across boundaries. So being able to share and receive files with third-party clients or contractors that aren't a part of your organization. And also with our technology known as right signatures, which is a legally binding e-signature. You can ask third-party clients to sign off on contracts or any types of documents you might have. And then modernizing and organizing your infrastructure. So bringing those legacy FTP and file servers into the cloud and moving away from the more archaic approach. And then flexible, those didn't populate, sorry. Let me populate them real quick. Flexible integration, so using your pre-existing infrastructure that's on-prem or in the cloud for content collaboration. And then finally, protecting your data. So there's auditing tools that can track group or user behavior and download and upload activity that they might have had. And you can even have it automatically generate every set number of weeks or bi-weekly or weekly and export it to Excel, which is super cool for auditing purposes. And also the ability to add watermarks to your documents when you share them with people in order to protect that sensitive data by putting their name and IP address on it. So using content collaboration is pretty neat at the end of the day, and it's also seamless to the workspace. So why choose it? So 3 key points are experience, choice, and security. Experience in that integrating it into the workspace, we're simplifying that user experience. We're allowing them to have the full functionality of content collaboration, of the workflows, of right signatures, of feedback, of approvals, and all the functions that come with content collaboration to all be accessed and executed from the workspace. And then choice. So giving IT the choice to store those files anywhere. So customers can store it locally, in the cloud, or both through a hybrid storage model. And we're also cloud agnostic, so we can leverage any of the major cloud providers as well. And then security. So it's inherently secure by design, but also adding to the security with encryption, authentication, restricting certain devices. And then with data loss prevention technology, we can restrict access to files based on the content. And the admin can set download permissions based on the users as well. And then with info rights management technology, it'll let you specify specific access rights per user or per group, so that a file can be view mode, whether it's online or offline, view online only, or view and print, or just view only, so read only, or you can have full control. So very granular in that regards as well. All right, and one of the great things about content collaboration is that you're able to leverage those third-party enterprise file sharing solutions alongside your workspace. So it allows your customers to access files stored in any repository, whether that's network shares, SharePoint, OneDrive, and several others, all that can be seamlessly integrated. And you might be wondering, well, we don't need ShareFile because we have SharePoint. Well, that means that if your users are strictly utilizing SharePoint, then the files they're sharing with one another isn't necessarily secure. And with content collaboration, we can integrate those third parties inside of the workspace, and their employees and their employers can let them continue to use those third-party file sync and sharing solutions alongside their files, all from a single pane of glass. So a cool feature of content collaboration, and definitely a popular one, is the plugin for Outlook. All it takes is a simple download from the internet, and that plugin is going to go into your Outlook, and it has the ability to automatically convert your files or attachments that are over a specified size to convert to a link of content collaboration. So you're not actually sending that file over the network. You're also able to have more control over those files by requiring the recipients to either enter their name and email or a specified username and password, or you can set a link to expire after a certain amount of time. And you can also send these links to people who don't have share files, so they don't need to have share file in order to access it. All they would need to do is have your permissions, whether it be a username and password or just their name. So very granular in that regards as well. And you can share files also with just a view-only mode, or limit the number of downloads that you want them to have, or just really giving you complete control over how you want to go about sharing your files. So that's what that banner would look like. Or you can just have it look like a link, like a hyperlink, instead of this big banner. All right, now we got one more survey before we wrap things up. So while you guys are answering that last question, I'll be taking a look at the chat box and start trying to answer those questions. But also feel free to contact me. There's my email information if you guys have any questions or anything. So thank you guys. So yeah, just get your votes in, please, for this last one, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, so we've got a couple questions. Can you elaborate on what Citrix's networking solution can do? Does it only support virtualization, right? So Citrix's ADC, like I mentioned, can do a number of things besides just virtualization. It has very strong load balancing capabilities. You can load balance non-Citrix specific stuff as well. And you can do heavy SSL offloading to help reduce that network traffic and lessen the load on your internal resources. It has a built-in web app firewall to protect your apps and APIs. It can also act as your SAML IDP provider and service provider as well. So yeah, it's truly the Swiss Army knife of a product. Can this be used to scale down the resources we have in a public cloud? So yes, Citrix gives you complete control over how much you want hosted in the cloud. So either on-prem, a hybrid approach, or a full cloud deployment. So for example, the Citrix Managed Desktops product and deployment is a full cloud deployment where we host even the workloads in the cloud. So that was more of a BCP initiative. Same thing with remote PC. That's more of a BCP initiative. But the Citrix Managed Desktops would be fully cloud. And not only that, but you have control over what cloud provider you prefer as well. Since we are cloud agnostic, we're very flexible in that regards as well. And also cloud consumption is definitely a rising cost and a growing concern for a lot of businesses. So giving customers that flexibility in that regards is imperative in my opinion. And also a cool feature called autoscale. So autoscale can dynamically create and turn off your workload servers, so your VDAs in the cloud as necessary to save costs by only running them when needed. So whenever you're not using one, they would automatically turn off and save that cloud cost, which is pretty cool. And then, yeah, someone asked which was the product I was referring to about standing up 5,000 users in 48 hours. So yeah, that was remote PC, which was a very hot commodity during the start of all this, during this pandemic and the COVID-19 situation, when people were desperate to find their remote work strategy. So remote PC is our way to use pre-existing infrastructure already in those customer sites. So if they already have a PC or a workstation in their office that they use, with remote PC, all they have to do is install that VDA software on there, and it's accessible virtually as a virtual desktop. And that was definitely the most popular use case during the beginning of all this. And it's very quick and easy to stand up, as my colleague did 5,000 users in 48 hours, which is pretty cool. And then the last one, how does the network data reduplication handle the need for compliance with regulations like HIPAA? Right. So, I mean, we've had a lot of success in the healthcare industry in regards to HIPAA and keeping that patient information secure and with compliance. How does the network data reduplication handle it? I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure. How does the network data reduplication handle the need for compliance? Yeah, maybe be a little more specific on that one, but yeah, we've had no real issues handling that, the HIPAA compliance and those standards that they require in the healthcare industry. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Gotcha. All right, I think that's all the questions we got for today. I want to thank you guys for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. And hopefully you reach out to either me or Kevin or anybody from WinCourse and xByte. I appreciate it.